What's up, everybody? We're here with the Deeper Podcast.
He is risen. Oh, wait. That was last week. We made it, man. We survived Easter, and we're back here on a Monday. It was Tuesday last week. We're out of rhythm. We got to get back into the deeper flow.
And we've been in this room for an hour.
We have been. The pre-podcast, the podcast before the podcast.
If only people.
The deeper podcast.
Only people.
Yeah, it would probably get us all fired. But hey, you got to have friends. You got to process. You got to walk through things and think through it. So if you're wondering what we think about going back to one service and how that flow went, if you're wondering about all that stuff, then you should check it. Oh, it doesn't exist. That's
and
right.
It never will.
And if it did, we would burn every single.
Somebody's going to come in here and put a bug in the
they're
room.
just going to start listening. Kathy's probably out there right now.
Probably.
You think so, Miss Kathy? When you listen to this, confirm. Have you been listening? So anyway, yeah, it was a great Sunday. Yesterday we went back to one service.
Yep.
Filled the room up, man. It was the biggest non-Easter attendance we've had probably in 6 months.
Yeah.
Which, some of that I think is your post-Easter bump, which is fun. There's excitement. Everyone comes to church and they're like, hey, that is pretty cool. Let's go back again. And then they come back the next week, and there was probably a little bit of the term used was nosiness of people just curious to see how the one service would look. So people who maybe popped in just to kind of see how it would go.
How much room and all
they
that.
They got their popcorn ready to come and sit it real close to somebody. But no, it was great. It's fun to preach to a full room. It's fun to lead.
There is something to that.
Brother Caleb, what'd you think? Did they sing better yesterday? Was it nice to have a full room singing?
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great. When I backed away a couple of times, there was a lot of voices.
You just loved it so much that you shouted "sing" into the microphone like 15 times during the
I
worship set.
tell them what to do.
You're just like, sing.
I got to, man.
Sing. And I was like,
Who else is gonna
leave
tell
them
them to
alone.
Yeah,
They
who
know
else is going to do it?
Do you need me to just start turning on my mic and say, sing?
At least I add like a melody to it. So
Yeah,
it's not
no. Everybody singing. Yeah. No, it was
That's pretty fun.
it was good. And it was a little bit of a throwback Central set yesterday. I don't think that was intentional, but
no, it wasn't. But
when you did the last two, look where I'm standing now. That's a classic
OG
Central vibe. And I say OG Central, but just like 3 years ago, that was in when I first came as the pastor, that was like a rock and roll. And then into It's
Great
Your
Are You,
Breath,
Lord.
and Great Are You, Lord. Yeah, that, I don't know why when you started, you give life. As soon as you did it, I was like, man, it's 2023 all over again, man.
Had to.
It was good. It was good. People hate change unless you're going back to the way things were. That was my quote of the day from yesterday's
It's
sermon.
actually the quote I wrote down.
That's the one. Yeah. No, it was a good change. It was positive to be in the room. And hey, we're looking forward to kind of renovating so we have more space. But I think our added chairs worked out okay. And Lord willing, we'll just keep it going the way it is. And if we keep having more people come, we'll find places to put them. So great day in the Lord's house. Dove back into Ephesians.
Jumped back in.
Did you miss it?
I did. I love Ephesians, man.
Great book of the Bible.
Yeah. I was having speaking of Ephesians, this really has nothing to do with the sermon, but you'll like this.
Okay.
We were having lunch with some friends yesterday after church and just talking about local churches and stuff. And I brought up Ephesians and I made the joke, which it sounds stupid, but it is true of trying to find a local church that's local, instead of driving 3 hours to go to a church. But I joked and Paul was not calling his people who lived in Ephesus to go to the church of Philippi down the road, and I was making that joke and it brought up because Paul is addressing all the issues specifically at Ephesus, which I thought was very funny.
I want to apologize to all the people who drive to Buna to come to church here.
No, I said local.
I'm kidding. No, there is something to that. Culture has changed quite a bit. Of course, he's talking to it wasn't possible then.
100%.
They couldn't go to, Parkway
Technically,
or,
they could.
Praise Laodicea. They couldn't.
They could have crossed what's the sea?
CTEX, Sardis. They couldn't go to.
The island.
Yeah, I'm just naming big churches that people commute to. Which, by the way, I know all those pastors and love them. Good people, good churches. And again, we have people
go to the
commute
island
here.
of Cyprus.
It was not possible then, but unashamedly, we desire the local church to be local.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And there are reasons people commute to the
Yep.
churches they go to. And if the Lord calls them there, by all means, drive to Praise, drive to Parkway, drive to, in fact, Riverside Presbyterian, drive to churches. We're just going all the flavors. Drive to church. Like, there are reasons people would want
Dunkin'
to
Babies.
go
Sorry,
to their
not-
church.
that was-
And I mean, if you're going to a church that's teaching theological error, I want to
Yes,
lovingly
get out
kind
of
of
there.
call you back and get out. So there are reasons for families to do that, and I don't want to speak for them. And again, we have people who commute to our church that drive quite a ways to come here, and we're grateful for that. But we desire our local church to indeed be local. We're not trying to become a regional superpower.
Yep.
Like our financial administrator, Miss Terry, was talking about walking into a coffee shop in Beaumont and heard people talking about Central Buna. She told me that she had talked to you about it.
Yep.
And they were talking about us in an interesting way, and it wasn't people who go here. And it was flattering by and large,
Yeah.
But I also just remember being kind of confused by that and saying, like, why are people
Yeah. How or why?
And hey, whatever, from a marketing perspective, it's like people are talking. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we ain't trying to get people to come from Beaumont and the greater mid-county. We're not trying to become a, 409 Central. Like,
Yeah.
that's not our heart. That's not our desire.
Yeah.
We are unashamedly church for Buna. And, honestly, even going back to one service is part of that. So I've made no bones about it. I'm sitting up. I'm kind of getting that. I'm getting serious in the podcast. This is like the video game meme, right? Where the guy leans forward. Two services was built for growth, right? And honestly, by the numbers, as you could see yesterday, we could still very well be doing two services. That's not even a question. Numerically, it makes sense to do two services. But we kind of were getting to a point where it was stagnant, so we weren't actually growing, and we could physically fit them in. And if the church is supposed to be a family, let's just try to do that as closely as we can. I don't really like going back to one service. I've made no bones about it, but here's what you also need to know. I'm the one who led the charge to go back to one service. So it's kind of weird. Like, anytime I've been talking to friends or even processing this with Mallory, she's like, weren't you the first person who started bringing this back up? She's like, had you never said anything, you would still be in two services, And that's true. I led this change, yet I also haven't liked it. But what I do like about it is the reality that it helps our church recognize that we are a family and see that in a little closer way. Now, here's what I want to say, because we said this on the podcast before the podcast. People oftentimes are like, it's just so good to be back together again. It's so sweet. I look around and see everyone, and it's just so good. But here's the reality. Right now, the size we are in one service, you don't actually visit with more people. You actually engage with less people because it's so crowded. So here's what I need you to work on, Central Family. You need to be as intentional as you have ever been about connecting with people around you. Because if you don't, we're back together like a church should be, all cramming in and then all leaving quickly after church. That's not what a church family ought to be. I want to see people lingering, visiting, talking, getting to know one another, connecting with people around them, because the church is a family. So we already are getting into the sermon content by just talking about what we're doing in our church life. So that shows that yesterday's sermon was eminently practical for us.
100%. Yeah. Talking about the family dynamic.
Yeah. So back in Ephesians, the second half of Ephesians chapter 2, what we called the sermon yesterday was God's household. And I started out on purpose with that analogy of a house versus a home, and essentially told story just to get to the point that the difference between a house and a home is that a home is lived in. And a house becomes a home when you've lived in it and experienced it. And the question really that the whole sermon was seeking to address is our church a house or is it a household? Is it a house or is it a home? Do we all just cram in here and do our thing and it's a little uncomfortable and stuffy and then we go about our lives? Or do we feel at home together as the household of God? And what we discovered in the text is that Paul says the gospel has transformed you. It's brought you from death to life so that you can now be part of this new family.
Mm.
You're no longer identified by your citizenship, by your background, your socioeconomic factors, your raising, none of those things. You are identified as a member of the kingdom of God. But then he zooms in even deeper. It says, not only are you citizens, but you're family.
Yeah.
So our primary identity is son or daughter of God, which means that our primary identity with one another is brother or sister.
You refer to it as to question ourselves if we're customers or not.
Yeah.
If we're are we customers or are we family members?
Yeah.
What did you mean by customers?
Yeah. So if you are a church family, then you should approach church like you do your family. Now, we didn't talk about this in the sermon, but let's just be real. For some people, that's hard
100%.
because they have dysfunctional families.
Yeah, I was thinking
right?
about that. That's true.
And you just can't address every little thing. So some people came out of dysfunctional families, and guess what? There's some dysfunctional churches too.
Yep.
That are like some dysfunctional families. But the reason that churches get dysfunctional is usually because they are like a family, and families can get dysfunctional because families are made up of people, and people are messy, like we said yesterday. But what I said is that we tend to treat church rather than a family that we belong to, we treat it like a store that we are consuming, a product to be consumed. And this is why people, quote unquote, go church shopping.
Yep.
I'm looking for the church that meets all my needs and all my preferences and that I like and that I enjoy. And we go church shopping like customers looking for the right fit.
Yeah.
And that's not what the Bible calls us to. The Bible calls us not to a religious experience that we consume, but to a family that we belong to. And the story I used yesterday, for those who didn't listen to the sermon, is the story of going to my grandma's house. And this happened on a Sunday morning where I was just very disappointed with and I didn't call it this at the time, but with the customer experience at the church I was a pastor at. The product was not good. And I knew it. And I was sitting there experiencing the fact and almost feeling the pressure like, okay, this seemed bad enough that I'm going to have to get up here and super crush it to get people to come back. And that's a bad way to go into the pulpit. And in that moment, as I'm processing that on the front row of the church that I was pastoring, the Lord brought to mind what I was doing after church, which was going to a family gathering in Spurger with my large extended family. And guess what? You get 40 or 50 people there from ages 90 to babies. It's a little chaotic. You get there and the rolls aren't done yet. You get there and we were going to eat at noon and it's 12:30 and we're not ready yet. All these things. And when you get there, what do? Do you start complaining about it? And of course, I made the joke that some of your families are like that. But no, what do? You get in there and say, Granny, what do you need? I'll put the tablecloths on. We need to wash some chairs to get ready outside. We need to do this. What do I need to do? I'll get some ice ready. Like you jump in and help because it's a family gathering. And you're not there as a consumer. You're there with your family. And the way we approach church should look more like that, as opposed to the way we look at it now, where we come and we decide if we like the experience or not. I just think the music isn't what I like. Or I just, I don't like it when he preaches too long, or he preaches too short, or he preaches out of the wrong translation, or he does like all these different things. We're evaluating our experience like customers.
Yep.
Instead of being like a family experience.
Yeah, the start of the church was solely built around service, like serving others. That's what it was built around, every little part of it. And now it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
It's all about us.
Yeah. And it's infected the way we do church all the way to the bone structures of it. Like, honestly, let's just be real. And this is the system we're in. So we're getting deeper on the Deeper podcast, but let's just go there. Both of your jobs exist because we've turned the church into a business.
How can we serve you?
Yeah. If we didn't have a youth ministry and didn't have a full-time youth minister, what would happen at our church? Everyone would go to First Baptist.
Yep.
As long as they kept Scott.
Yep.
Everyone would go somewhere else. And they would say, they just don't have stuff for youth. Whereas what should happen, families should step up and figure out how to disciple our teenagers. But that wouldn't happen
Yeah.
because we provide a service.
Yeah.
In fact, our service is so good that a bunch of the other churches' kids come here.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's getting weird, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Same with our kids' ministry.
Yep.
We're providing a service, and people like our product, so they come. Caleb, if Caleb were to be not our music minister and we got Brother Roger back up there waving his hand, singing hymns, what would happen? Our
About
attendance would
30,
decline
50 people.
significantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, significantly, quickly, and significantly. What does that say? All the way to me. What if we replaced me with somebody who might not be as dynamic a communicator?
Yeah.
Somebody was a little
more
dry.
that more than anything.
Probably,
Yeah.
yeah. We evaluate what we like based on the products, and that it's subtle, but it's happened. So how do you fight against that? Well, today I need to let y'all know that the Deeper podcast is going to be done because we're firing these guys, and I'll be the only one on staff. No, that's not how you counteract that. We don't try to be less good at what we do. That's not how you fix this. But our heart position always has to be, we're a family, and how do we operate with the best interest of our family? How do I serve these people with what they need rather than what they want? And that's the dangerous thing for us as pastors.
100%.
We can build a church based on meeting the preferences of the people around us. And that's the fastest way to grow a church, for sure. But you have to intentionally say, no, I'm a shepherd. So sometimes that means, we talked about the Deeper podcast. We talked about my social media post about sports and rodeo and music and all these things dominating the church calendar. And that was not a popular post with some people, probably. There are people that I love and care about who may have read that and felt, quote unquote, attacked. But that wasn't my heart. And if you're just trying to grow a bigger church, you don't make that post.
Yeah.
I didn't make that post to try to get clout or, I wrote that post because I love our people. And, some of the people that I hope the Lord used that to minister to wouldn't be at church. So I couldn't just wait and say it on a Sunday because they're not coming because they're playing Quidditch on Sundays.
If only.
Select Quidditch. So here's what I'm saying.
I probably wouldn't be here on Sundays if it was like
what I mean by that, though, guys, is that wasn't that I didn't do that for popularity. In fact, that's actually a thing that I joked yesterday about. This is actually a space making sermon.
Yeah, you did say that.
We're making more space by these things that I'm saying. Well, if we're a family, we're going to say the hard things that need to be said.
Yeah.
We were going to be willing to go there. Why? Because it's for the good of your health and your body and the church body. Like it's not about just trying to have more people here. If it was, we would operate differently. And I said that at a point yesterday, and this might have been the most awkward part of the sermon. I was like, if it is just about the product, there are better products. I can name you 2 or 3 preachers. In fact, I think Paul Bowen is my favorite preacher. Paul Bowen is, if you don't know, is the pastor at First Baptist Buna. Paul is my favorite preacher. I listen to him preach regularly. I don't listen every week because it would depress me because I think he's so awesome. And I would just, feel like I fall short. I love Paul Bowen's preaching. I've said here, why do y'all come here when Brother Paul is preaching right down the road? Now, again, that may just be my preferences. Some of y'all may be thinking, I don't really know. But it's not about that ultimately, right? So there are better products and there's better music. Brother Caleb does a phenomenal job. But there are churches within a 30, 40-minute drive of our building that put a massive emphasis on production value. You're going to feel something in every worship service. An emotive experience brought about by incredible music, talented musicians and vocalists, lights, fog, screens. Like you will experience something. And you can find better products than us all around us. But that's not the business we're in because we're not in a business. We are a family. That changes the way you make decisions at a granular level of your church all the way up. But it's easy to talk about, but hard to actually do.
Yeah. Yeah. To have that mindset for sure. Yeah. Yeah. There's something to, you said it's a few minutes ago, you said it's hard for us to provide our people what they need instead of what they want. And I think yes, that is 100% true for all three of us in the room, but I think that's true for everybody watching this.
Yeah.
Regardless of the situation you're in or what job position you hold, like that is the dilemma that I think all of us face on a daily basis of if you're in a role of leadership and if you are in charge of other people, right? The hardest part is to decide in the split second moment where your heart says, all right, here's what I want them to have. Here's what I want to tell them. Here's what I know they need to, but then actually providing what they truly need is such a drastic difference. And the bad part is you can have your entire, like it scares me to have my entire career in youth ministry could be built on giving students and parents what they want.
Yeah.
And it being successful.
Yeah.
That's the scary part, is a lot of times it goes good.
No, that's right. And that is the scary reality for us as pastors.
Yeah.
And for other pastors that may be watching this, which I don't know that a lot of pastors watch. We do have a lot of people from other churches, and you may want to send this one to your pastor if you think it's helpful. But here's what I would say. You can be very successful building a church the wrong way.
Yeah, you can be good at it.
And that is concerning for us. People often use the phrase healthy things grow. And that's a pragmatist's statement. Healthy things grow. And I do think there's truth to that.
There is.
If you are doing things in a biblical, healthy way, there will be fruit. So growth is a natural product of it. But here's what else I know. Cancer grows.
Yeah.
I was your size at one point, and I've grown.
Yeah, when you were
I'm just saying, when I was in fourth grade.
Yeah.
I know I'm also just a big guy, but also I'm overweight, and it's not good for my health. I take blood pressure medicine because I'm also just wound up all the time, but also because I'm overweight. So I'm not healthy because I've grown. If you were to gain 100 pounds over the course of 2 years, we would not say that's healthy growth, Bryce.
Yeah.
Way to go. Well, yeah, he's growing. Praise the Lord. It's not good. So all growth is not good growth.
Yeah.
So we can't go this way of pragmatism that says if it works, then it's fine. No, God has a way for us to grow. We talked about this in our young adult Bible study last week, which is pretty awesome that in our college Bible study, we've talked about something that probably most people have not even heard of.
Yeah.
The regulative principle versus the normative principle. The regulative principle is the idea that everything that should happen in congregational worship is something that we've read in here and seen in the scriptures. So our worship service ought to be made up of only what we see in the Bible. The normative principle says this, that if the Bible doesn't speak directly to it, you can do whatever you want. Most broad evangelical churches have been going by the normative principle.
Yeah.
That says this is what we do, this is when we do it and why we do it.
Lord's Supper.
This is, we kind of do whenever we want, however we want.
Yeah.
The Bible doesn't say you can't have movie clips. The Bible doesn't say you can't have big drama skits. The Bible doesn't say you can't have somebody painting a picture in the corner while I'm preaching. Like whatever you want to do, go for it. The Bible doesn't speak against it. You can do it. So I kind of end up leaning, and let me say this, the extreme version of the regulative principle would be our Church of Christ friends who don't even do music because the New Testament doesn't mention worship music instruments.
Yeah.
So they just say, nope, it doesn't say it, so we're not doing it. That's the extreme of the regulative principle, but here's what I want to say. Growing up in the evangelical world, I have become much more closer to the regulative principle than I used to be. The Bible does prescribe what we're to do in congregational worship. It's not just the wild, wild west of do what you want and whatever you want. The Bible has said that we should gather together for the sake of worship and prayer and the word and the sacraments, and sacraments for us, we say ordinances, but the ordinary means of grace of the Lord's Supper and baptism, like that is what worship is for. So we want to be intentional about building our worship service around what the Lord has said we ought to do when we gather on the Lord's day. So we're not building our preference, and this is really the long way around to what we're talking about. And this has gone way beyond the sermon, which I think is fun. Some weeks we just review the sermon. Today we've gone truly deeper. But we want to build our church around God, not around man. This is the shift. Because somewhere in like the 80s and 90s, people started saying, what do we got to do to get more people in these churches?
Yeah.
So we started creating experiences. We don't even call them worship services anymore. We call them worship experiences. Come to our worship experience at 10 o'clock on Sundays. And we try to create something that's about the people that are attending that will be attractive to them instead of gathering together for the sake of worshiping an almighty, holy, righteous, loving, merciful God who has brought us all here. So are we building our worship services around man, or are we building our worship services around God? And I think the way you answer that drastically changes the way your worship service looks. And I think even here at Central, we've probably leaned toward the man side of things over the course of time, and we're trying to get back to this and trying to figure out what that looks like. And it's a messy, complicated process, but it's worth breaking a few eggs to make an omelet for the glory of God.
Yeah.
It's a weird way to put that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
This might be an old school thought.
Yeah.
But if all the time of church history, right? Long time.
Been a minute. A couple thousand years.
You could probably say the past 25-ish years, this has been the trend.
Yeah.
Of all of the years of church
Well,
history.
it's actually more like 35 or 45 years at this
I
point.
guess not. Yeah, you're right,
Yeah.
actually. But even that, I mean, even say 40 years of all of the time of church history where we've gone further and further away from the original, right?
Yeah.
Now, just for this short little while, this has been a trend.
Yeah.
But you don't think about that.
We were singing songs that were hundreds of years old. Now we're singing songs that are 10 minutes old. Like, when's the last time? We don't sing songs that were popular when I was a worship pastor in 2006.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Or when
to me.
I was in 2017. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
It moves that fast now.
Yeah.
Where used to, we sang songs that were established. Now listen, some of our older friends
Yeah.
listening are like, hey, man.
Yeah, exactly.
But guess what?
Yeah.
In the 80s, you weren't singing old songs. You were singing songs Bill Gaither wrote.
Yeah.
It's the same way. It started around that same time.
And I'm not promoting go back to
yeah, that exactly.
1100.
We're not saying we're only going to sing public domain hymns.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm arguing for here.
But it's just the mindset of what which I think you're trying to say.
You got to give the people what they want.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that was not the start. That's not how it started.
One of the turning point in Central's history, attendance wise, was in the early 2000s when we first started doing more contemporary music with the band. Seriously, you talk to our people who've been here, when we really grew was in that season, and it was by and large because of our music.
I worked at a church in Dallas that legitimately still has a contemporary and classic service. Yeah. And that's normal.
Yeah.
And
why do you got to do that? Because you got to give the people what they want on both sides.
Yeah. Whatever you want to say about that, whatever you want to say, that is the reason. Yeah. That is the reason. You have a group of people who need this, who want this, and a group of people who want this.
Yes.
And you provided that want.
Yeah, and so that's what concerns me on both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
If Caleb started doing nothing but hymns starting this Sunday, old hymns, there will be people leave our church. And in the same way, in fact, First Baptist is about to start looking for a music minister. Fun fact, my uncle, Rusty Mott, is going to be their interim music minister. So that's kind of funny. That's caused some consternation when Brother Paul first sent the email out that said Rusty Mott from Spurger was going to be our interim music minister. It very much confused some people, but it's all good. If First Baptist were to hire Caleb to be their music minister, poach us, that would be quite the scandal in Buna. But if they did it, name your price, guys. He might know. But if they did it, guess what? There would be people who would leave First Baptist because now they're doing modern music. And I would just say to you, both of those are short-sighted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're making it about your preference. Go, Caleb.
When are we going to have, where the preference is not traditional hymns, it's not new worship, but it's the in-between?
Here's an idea.
It's
hybrid.
Yeah. Blended.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
cool
blended,
church code.
yeah.
Well, no, it's the
Blended
people
worship.
that prefer the 2000s to the
Yeah,
2030s.
that's right.
Worship.
Yeah.
Can we do that? Well, yeah, is the classic service.
What do
gonna
you
be
call that? Like the
how great is our
traditional
God?
modern service.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
traditional, then there's the post-traditional, and
Yeah.
then there's the modern.
So how do we work this for our church, Caleb? How do you, as a music minister, with all of these various styles, and you know that preferences are all over the map in a church like ours, how do you plan worship around the Lord and not man?
Yeah, it's something that I still think about to this day. It becomes a not necessarily thinking about the preference, but rather what pleases the Lord.
Yeah.
You know, and I've had to make that switch. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was let's make sure it's super blended.
Yeah.
Versus now, my focus has been, well, no, what are we singing that glorifies the Lord?
Yeah.
That puts the direction to the Lord, whether it be old or new.
Yeah.
What are we doing? And also what encourages our church body to do that, not to be involved with their preferences, but to be involved with worship to the Lord.
Yeah.
And what forces them to do that. So,
Yeah, because we all have our biases.
Yes.
And that's what I have learned to be careful with Caleb, because Caleb is a little bit of a people pleaser, and I also am his boss, so I get that. But so stay in line. No, I'm kidding. But like if I tell him I don't like that song, like he'll just cut that song all the way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Now, if I said that song contains theological error, which we've had a couple songs that I'm like, what are we singing?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I don't. Yeah, we probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
But the truth is, me liking or not liking a song has no bearing on whether it should be part of our service or not, right? So
Yeah,
so
Rusty
there are
hates
songs-
everything that I do on Wednesday nights. But we still
all
do
of it. No,
Just
like my preferences don't matter. I had somebody, I had some hot takes on the Easter Bunny on one of our deeper podcasts, and I had a friend who goes to another church in town who said, "You had that video clip about you not doing the Easter Bunny at home, yet y'all had the Easter Bunny hopping around at your church last week."
got him.
And here's what I said.
Got him.
Yeah, there was kind of a got you moment almost. And I said to that brother, I said, "Does your church do everything exactly like your pastor wants them to do?" They kind of looked at me, and I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't.
I'm not the good. Y'all act like I'm the dictator of Central. There are lots of things here that are different than I want, but it's not about my preferences. It's about honoring the Lord." So that's why we had the Easter Bunny hopping around. Okay, we digressed onto a weird topic there, but I'm just saying it's not about my preferences and my wants, and it shouldn't be about any of ours. If we're a family, we come together to serve one another, but more important even than just the one another's, it's about we want to get together as a family and say, what can we do that honors and glorifies King Jesus? That's what we want to do in every decision we make, everything we do. So how do we know if it's going to honor or glorify King Jesus? That was the second point of our sermon, and we won't belabor these points because we've probably already gone 30-ish minutes.
Yeah.
But we not only have a new family, but we have a new foundation.
Yeah.
And we said that this foundation by the apostles and the prophets is referring to the Word of God, and it says Jesus is the cornerstone. Last week we learned that the whole Bible is about Jesus. So the foundation for the Church of Jesus Christ ought to be the Bible. Everything we do as a church ought to be based on this book.
Yeah.
And we have a biblical reason. And listen, this is why I love being a pastor, and this is what has given me boldness to make some hard decisions at times. If it crosses people's preferences, but we have a biblical reason for what we're doing, I don't care. Even if people are upset about it, I don't care, because this book is going to take priority over my preferences, your preferences, anybody else's preferences. And people are like, well, that's just your interpretation of that passage. Okay, well, that's our church's interpretation of this passage. So if you disagree with that, this may not be the church for you, and that's okay. We can have some loving disagreements, but we have a biblical reason for why we're proceeding in the ways we're proceeding. It's this foundation. And all of that, if you read the Bible and you start as an individual, as a family, and as a church family doing what the Bible says, what it's going to send you toward is a new mission. And that mission, according to the text, was that God is building us into a spiritual house where his presence will dwell, and he'll make himself known to Buna, to Jasper County, to Southeast Texas, and literally the entire world. This is God's plan. And that's what we're going to talk about this next Sunday. It's kind of wild that the mystery of the gospel is actually the church. God's plan A for the church or for the mission of God is his church.
Mm.
It's absolutely incredible.
I'm
So we're
excited.
going to think
It's gonna
about
be good,
that.
man. Yeah, we went long on this one.
Yeah, man, we went deep. This
Yeah.
was a deeper.
Nice.
So hopefully y'all enjoyed it. And if not, we apologize. Maybe we'll be tired next week and just recap the sermon.
If not, we'll never see you again.
So, hey, listen, huge announcement next week
yeah.
on the Deeper Podcast.
Yeah. Don't want to miss it.
Huge announcement. And this sounds like a bluff. It's not a bluff.
It's not.
There is a huge announcement coming this week. So we want you to check it out next Monday.
See you later. Bye.